Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So this is Dionysus and the economy. I believe we're on part 7. And keep in mind they're trying to make it so I sound weird. You can hear the effects of them fuming me and poisoning me at times. And I've talked to people who agree that that's what it is. And people who work for the government have admitted to me that that's what they're doing. So there's no question about that whatsoever. And it shows the kind of desperation and insanity from these people who came up with a ritual for ritual insanity. They came up with various cultures that push ritual madness in order to try to make themselves seem more mature, trying to make themselves seem superior to people. As they wear the nice suits and go to the nice restaurants and have the fancy, government accommodations, tables, chairs, press conferences, fancy corporate this, that, and the other thing, the estates, and they try to make it so everyone else seems less than they are. And then there's some kind of crazy priests who have a lot of influence, perhaps, and they perhaps don't live in a way that's so lavish. And so there's a lot of crazies out there that play various roles in this sixth system that they have, this Babylonian, Dionysian, Greco-Roman system that they have. This new version of it, this Neo-Greco-Roman system. So we were talking about hallucinogenic drinks. And notice the word hallucinogenic has the word gene in it, like eugenics has the word gene in it. And eugenics, right, when we look at the root words, the root terms, you get good and you get genes. And they say the EU, if I'm not mistaken, means good. And the second part is genes. Good stock, good genes. Obviously, the people doing eugenics are sick, they're mad, they're crazed, white, Jew, and LGBT supremacists, and various token minorities who are at least quite often mixed with them, if not always. So there was a certain fungus that they would ingest, a hallucinogenic drink, and there's parallels in Revelation and Jeremiah. They're drunk off the blood of the saints symbolically. And that's how the Christians interpreted these rites that were still taking place, when John wrote Revelation in the 1st century AD, for example. Okay. John the Revelator, not John the Baptist. So, initiates would take the hallucinogenic drink. They would take things from a chest and repeat various words. They would say things like, I have fasted, I have drunk the cup, I have received from the box. Having done it, they put it in the basket, and they said something about the basket and the chest, right? Out of the basket, came the chest, or, they put in the chest from the basket, or whatever stupid things in that regard. Now, this doesn't matter. The basket is associated with Neith, and the chest is associated with the chest that Osiris was put in. And guess what part of the world, received the body of Osiris, in at least some of the Osirian myths? It went down to the east, into the Middle East. And you have various peoples there, right? Persians, Arabs, various Semites, various Mesopotamian peoples there. Canaanites, Phoenicians, what have you. And from that kind of melting pot, that pluralistic culture at times at least, but it's certainly because of Dionysus, somewhat of a melting pot in some ways at least, came more of the ritual madness, more of the nonsense. So their rituals would go on until dawn. Following this was baptisms. And notice the word baptism has the word bat scrambled into it. And Bat is a deity that's associated with Narmer on the Narmer palette, who is said to be the pharaoh who united the two lands in Egypt. Before him, it's said to be pre-dynastic Egypt, where you had pharaohs like Ka and Iri-Hor, Horus kings, who laid the foundation. When other people were fooling around doing stupid rituals, they probably weren't much different than these silly Dionysian rituals. And just today, matter of fact, I should put that as the main picture. I think I will. There was several events here. One, they showed me a knife yesterday, and this morning somebody had stabbed like 4 of his family members. and there was a football player who had stabbed a rival football player in one of these schools at the event in a way that was, it was unusual enough for it to be on the news, and it's from another state somewhere. It's like Texas or something. But there's also these protests protesting Trump, and they're saying hands off, America, and they're talking about the tariffs, and they're talking about the various events that are associated with Donald Trump's executive orders, what have you. And you see these people there. One of them looks like, these Mexican people who worship, it's like Santa Maria or something to that effect, Lady Death, what have you, the cartels, the people there, and there's people in the various occult, systems. There was people wearing a dress. I think it was in Los Angeles. There's these people wearing a dress, and one of the things on the dress was Donald Trump with a long Pinocchio nose. And you see this guy with a flag or something that says liberty on it. I'm going to put the picture on the screen. And he looks like Dionysus. He's probably related to the people who do those cults there. Looks very much like him. He's a Jewish gentleman or something. Looks like he's mixed with English or something. And the sign said liberty. He has the textbook kind of mime, the Crow, Brandon Lee from the Crow, where he has some kind of makeup where the tears are dripping. That's very much an occult symbol of people who have been raped and turned out. What happens to a showgirl behind the scenes, right? What happens to a prostitute wearing lipstick and she's had a party and she gets kidnapped and trafficked and raped, and then her makeup smears with her tears and her blood and what have you. And so that is very much a symbol of the occult, the symbol of secret society. Secret, right? Secret, where Dionysus is very much associated with, and secretion, okay? And they're doing it in secret. And even the rose is a symbol of rape by deception. It's a symbol of a secret, erotic desire-based perversion of love. The Greeks didn't really have a word for true love. They had a word for erotic desire. They had a word for companionship-based love, pragma, storge, and eros. Okay, but the closest thing they had for a word for true love was mania. Okay, where we get the word manic and mania and maniac. And that was what they called a selfish love, because they were very much a kind of collective people, where there's the be-all, ball, and there's the jack-all, right? Set, right? Set replaces Abel in the Bible. First they pretend that everyone's equal, and then they try to jack them behind the scenes. What's going on right now? You see certain white Jew and LGBT groupings in America. It's very obvious. I'm sure everyone here agrees right away that they're orchestrating the cultures and they're controlling things through corporations and the deep state and on and on and on. Okay? And all the weird sex kitten-like programs, whatever they're called, they're doing something like that. Very much associated with Dionysus, right? Sex kitten and the leopard and the cat Bastet in Egypt and on. Witches and their cat, all kinds of connections that are straightforward, clear cut. Okay, and they're trying to jack all. They're ruining your genes. Like they ruined the genes of those people who were in the various cults, Sabazius, okay, and Dionysus in the Norse and on. They went all over Europe, all over the world, ruining people's genes, slipping stuff into their food and their drink, fuming them. They're big on the fuming. They love to start fires and put some kind of hallucinogenic, herb in the fire, some mint, some kind of plant, and they would make people very sick. So they would inhale things, they'd ingest them, they'd drink them, they'd eat them, and they would mess up their genes. It would mess up their brain, it would mess up their sperm, and then they have sex with these things in their system, which would mess up their children. And that's why so many people have brain damage to this day. I would love to debate a neurologist on this anytime, a neuroscientist of any kind. I would love to debate a biologist on this, okay? I would love to debate these people on this issue. Do things have an epigenetic effect? You betcha. I don't have a degree in these things, but I am certain with the information that I have that people on my side of the debate would see that I'm right and everyone else would see that I'm right, without using fancy terms past a certain point, because it's so clear. It's like saying, is it a bad idea to drink a whole lot and drive blindfolded? Is it a bad idea in terms of reproduction and epigenetic, generational genetic effects, okay, for somebody to be a part of the Dionysian cult where they're ingesting all these things, and where they're arrogant sons of bitches who separated themselves from these things, pretended to be on God's side, and who try to benefit from the sabotage of this. And should those worms then turn around and pretend that they're ideal and everyone else is an idiot or something? Very, very sick. And the implications on compensation go quite deep, I assure you. These are the same dogs talking about they want a meritocracy. Now again, I don't believe in DEI, I believe in pinpointed solutions. Okay, but should people be included in the economic process when you've sabotaged their genes for generations? You betcha. Are people hesitant to admit that their genes are sabotaged because it's embarrassing, and they've been taught to believe in equality and play stupid about these things, and they've been taught that if they lie about their brain function and how smart they are, that somehow it helps them? You betcha. They talk about being empowered in the New Age and light workers, even the churches these days. It is very disgusting. And notice they're making it so I sound that I'm hard to listen to. You know, if you have the option to switch to annotations, you might consider that. But keep in mind, quite often they get the words wrong. And they try to make it seem like I'm saying something that I'm not. Very sick people, very low down, dirty. You can't put nothing past them. Now let me just wrap this up here. So we haven't even got to the first 40 minutes of the video that I took notes on, the main video. Because there was another video with some occultist, Lady Celestia or something like that, whatever, Demetrius or whatever her name was. That was how I started this series. But the rest of this has been from a video and from my own research and memory and so on and so forth, but from a video that's like an hour and 49 minutes long. And we're not even at the 40-minute mark here. So let me just shoot through this, and there's a good chance I'm not going to explore the rest of the video, because this has been one miserable experience trying to go over the notes here and being fumed and poisoned, and you know, they've been treating me this way for a long time. Okay. So the initiate is said to have been transformed at the sight of dawn and to no longer fear death. Okay. So things are shrouded in mystery, but we have fragments of testimony about how powerful they thought that the rituals were. Many influential figures and luminaries of the ancient world were initiates in the mysteries. For those of you who think that this is not a big deal, ask yourself why Plato and Socrates and Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar and Cleopatra and Caesar Augustus and Marcus Aurelius, just to name a few, were initiates. Alexander the Great was taking part in various occult rituals in Babylon and in Egypt, and I believe he died in Babylon. Okay, so Nicholas of Damascus writes about Brahmin of India traveling all the way to Greece just to be initiated, and he talks about how some of them died on the way and that they presented gifts. And they presented gifts by a place where there was a Hermes statue without arms. They presented large snakes, a serpent 10 cubits in length, a river tortoise of 3 cubits in length, and a partridge larger than an archer. They were accompanied by a certain Brahmin who, for some reason, after the initiations into the Elysian mysteries, he wished to die. He no longer feared death to the point where he actually wanted to die, to make a point. He wished to make a display for the benefit of Augustus Caesar and the Athenians. He was therefore initiated into the mysteries of Dionysus and Demeter, which were held out of season on account, they say, of Augustus, who was also an initiate. This particular Brahmin threw himself alive into the fire and died. His tomb had an inscription on it. It said his name and where he's from. He said to have immortalized himself according to the custom of his country. Here lies Dionysus. Excuse me. Scratch out that here lies. So Dionysus possessed the ability to induce inspiration and ecstasy in his worshippers, and this held profound significance in the realms of art and literature in Athens. So a lot of this art you see is a mocker, base, worm, Dionysus mocking a turtle, Dionysus playing referee in various competitions, somebody who's way out of touch in reality, just a dumbass, okay, acting like he knows best about everything you can think of. Arts would include martial arts, just a dumbass making a fool of himself and his family and his culture and disgracing everything that he touches. I'm sure you can all agree on that by now. If not, you haven't been paying attention, put in the comments, we'll discuss it. Okay. Various theatrical presentations of tragedy and comedy were integral parts of the two Dionysian festivals. They stuck out the most, okay? And their names, you can see the video of yourself if you want the names to be correct, and ask yourself, when you have all the names, did it make a difference? No. The idea is important. The key parts are important. The names and the details, for the most part, aren't important. The devil is in some of the details, not all the details. It's like memorizing every word in the Bible or something. It's not necessary. Okay. So Dionysus received various tribute in various ways, including through poetry. Okay, and we see in the thing on the screen, including in protest, right? Protestant, which goes back to, I believe it's Proverbs 6 or so, somewhere around verse 6, like Proverbs 6 through 8 or something like this, where it talks about the ants. It says, stop being a sluggard, learn to be wise from the ants, and apply diligence, prudence. Be prudent. The way of the morally precise, prudent person is the way of wisdom. Okay. So, however, the Roman narratives, we see that his character is often being misconstrued, being reduced to the merry figure of Bacchus. Now, whether it's misconstrued or not, I guess is up for debate, but that's a quote from the video, give or take. Okay, so a staple of his festive gatherings was drinking. The festivities of the Bacchia were officially forbidden in Italy in 186 BC. There was a major event in Roman Republican history. A group of runaway slaves and plebeians led a revolt in the northern wilderness of Rome, led by women, a certain woman in particular. And she is believed to have led the mystery rites of Dionysus, especially the so-called holy orgia, which was an unholy orgia, mind you. There's no such thing as a holy orgy. That's sick. And, okay. And it goes back to all the Roman orgies, right? It wasn't just Dionysus, right? Rome was known for orgies in general, and that kind of thinking was sort of pervasive in the culture. Livy portrays the ceremony a certain way, and it said it was exclusive to women. It was conducted during daylight on only 3 annual occasions. In some instances, they were nighttime events. They increased the occurrences to 5 times monthly and made them accessible to all genders and social standings. This particular female also made consumption of wine, along with acts of violence and mandatory intimate encounters, a core part of the initiation process. The vulnerable, including the lower socioeconomic classes, the slaves, the women, okay, what have you, and those perceived to be morally feeble, were believed to be the most affected. But even upper class men were not exempt. Livy reports that the men dressed as women and the women like men, and same-sex relationships were encouraged. A former member exposed the process, okay, to the Roman Senate, and after thorough scrutiny, as the story goes, the Senate acted to dismantle the cult, believing that this action prevented divine retribution on Rome. Livy states that around 6,000 individuals faced execution. Among the detained was Minus Carinus, or whatever the person's name was, a certain person who's important, and no one knows what that person's fate was. So keep in mind that them cracking down on the Bacchanalia and the cults of Dionysus, aka Liber, where we get the word liberty again. Libor, Libeir, L-B-Eri, right? That was like the war on drugs, where the governing class is controlling the drugs. They're making sure their money flows a certain way. They're using it to their